This is Self-Starter. Hello folks, welcome to Self-Starter, a podcast that highlights the small business owners, the self-employed and freelancers who have taken the plunge to create their own desirable lifestyle. My name is Andy Dowling. I'm also the host of the Andy Social podcast. I play bass in the Australian metal band Lord, and I'm also a dispute resolution specialist. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook by searching @Andy Dowling, or you can head on over to selfstarter.com.au where you can learn more about yours truly and anything and everything to do with the self-employment world. This episode is with Jariss Shead of Yarnsy's Cafe in Tarrawanna, which is a northern suburb of Wollongong. Now, Yarnsy's Cafe opened its doors in 2017, and since the launch, the cafe has seen considerable success in a booming Illawarra and Wollongong area. Jariss and his co-owner, Thomas Bailey, have gradually evolved the business into a multifunctional space to cater not only for the local coffee and cafe crowd, but also local artists and musicians to help celebrate and nurture local talent. The popularity of the cafe has helped complement the area, and with the recent opening of a local beer brewer next door, Yarnsy's is working collaboratively not only with them but other businesses in the area to ensure that not only are they benefiting, but also the customers are getting a value-added experience. I sat down with Jariss in the spacious and chilled open court area at the cafe to talk about the concept, where the inspiration and the idea originally came from, his personal inexperience in running a business and what he had to do to make it all happen, and heaps more. Now, as always, you can find all the resources and information about Yarnsy's Cafe, including my key takeaways over at selfstarter.com.au. But for now, please enjoy this great chat with Jariss Shead of Yarnsy's Cafe. Hello, sir. Thank you very much for having me at your lovely little establishment,
No
Yarnsy's. We'll kick off. Do you want to give a brief introduction of who you are and what your business is?
Yeah, my name is Jariss Shead. I'm the co-owner of Yarnsy's Cafe and Art Space in Tarrawanna, and we've been going for a year and a half now. We started on the 9th of January in 2017, and it's been going really good. I'd run this with my business partner Tom Bailey, but yeah.
It's a pretty cool space, and we were just speaking before, it didn't start like this.
No.
It's sort of been in stages that weren't even really intentional to begin with. It sort of started as a smaller concept and sort of evolved over the last sort of year or so.
Yeah, that's right. If I'd had my way at the very beginning, it probably would have had some sort of, you'd probably be seeing some like Mexican skulls and stuff around. That was kind of what I wanted to sort of start. But yeah, it started off as just like I kind of happened upon it getting shown. I went to an antique store, which is just kind of was next door to where we are now, and was just looking for an old bookshelf, and the lady in there kind of said, "Oh, I'll take you in and have a look at the storeroom because I don't think we got anything in here, but I'll show you the storeroom." She took me into like what is now our art space, and it was just like a big room, and I was kind of like, "Oh, what's it being used for?" And she's like, "Oh, it's not being used. The landlord's just storing her old stuff here." And so that kind of got me in my head, because I've always kind of wanted to do something that I could sort of like showcase art and stuff, but nothing really, anything in particular. But yeah, that was what sort of started the ball rolling. And then a couple of months later, I sort of noticed that I could probably maybe get a cafe going in here, because there wasn't anything around the area that I wanted to get going. And then, there wasn't anything in the area that sort of was like that. There was a small cafe up on the corner, but it wasn't anything any good, let's just say that.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of, it was like, all right, maybe I could do a cafe. And I didn't have any experience or knowledge or anything. It was a bit naive at the time, but just really keen. And so we just went straight into it, approached the landlord, and by that time, the shop in front of our shop had kind of gone as well, and that was an old hairdresser, but they sort of moved along, and I was like, well, maybe I could join the back room and the front room together and make like a big space and use the courtyard space we've got around in and kind of join it all together, and that was what we sort of decided, and that was where we sort of went with. And then I started looking for friends that kind of knew a bit more, because I realized pretty soon that I didn't know anything, and that like I needed to have somebody that did. So I approached a few people, and I live really close to the place, so I approached a few of my friends, and I knew that like there was lots of people in the area and that it was something that was needed, but these are guys that kind of aren't from the area, and they kind of came down, and they've been good friends of mine for a while, but straight away they were kind of like, I don't know, man, not many people around, and not a lot of foot traffic and stuff. And I was kind of like, well, like, I know that it's needed, like I know that it's pretty important, like that it's like there's an opportunity here, and so I stayed keen, and they weren't really keen, so I was like, all right, I'll find somebody else, and I kept looking. And then I remembered that one of my good friends, Tom, from early childhood, had been doing lots of hospo for his whole life, and he'd even mentioned like a couple of years back that maybe he wanted to do a cafe one day. So I hit him up, and straight away he was like, yeah man, like let's do it, let's go 100% in, let's just go for it. And so if I'd had, honestly, I can't really compare it to going in with anybody else, but if I'd have gone with anybody else, I don't think it would be anywhere near as successful as it's been, because he's been like the smartest dude with all this stuff. Like he just knows all of the ins and outs of like how a cafe works. When I started, I was like, man, how do you know all this stuff? Like, what have you done? He's like, dude, I've just had so many crap bosses that just haven't been able to like.
So as you said earlier, he's had a lot of experience working in cafes, like not owning them or anything like that, but just running cafes, working in.
Yeah, being like a manager and working in them. Yeah.
And just to backtrack a little bit, there's two big things here. Like, so the original sort of light bulb moment was a space to display arts and things like that, and music. Like it was sort of a creative sort of space.
Yeah.
But then, in order for that passion to become a reality and be viable, then you thought, I need something else. And
that's
potentially
right,
the cafe came as an addition to whatever the first idea was.
That's right, yeah. So the first, I mean, I'm an artist by trade, I guess you'd say. Done music teaching and stuff. So yeah, I just thought it would be like a cool place to maybe do some like exhibition stuff, and pretty quickly I realized that wasn't going to be the only thing that it could be, because where's the income? You know, how am I going to pay rent? And you know, art only sells when it's really, 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 really good. And so I was like, well, I need to have some sort of like regular income stream. So I thought a cafe would be important, and that's when I was like, yep, that's what we need around here. But just kind of tuning into like what my housemates wanted as well. They live in the area, so they were like, we need somewhere to go
get market
coffee.
Research there.
Yeah, I guess so. Like not anything like particular, but just kind of putting the feelers out and see what people wanted in the area, and that's how I kind of got going.
And I know that you said like, you know, you're pretty dead on the idea as far as keen and moving forward. And you know, you got your partnership up and running, but you know, when you're talking to those other guys who had some experience and weren't from the area, but sort of said, oh, I don't know about this and the foot traffic and all these sort of things. I mean, even though you were keen and you still pushed the idea, did you have that moment of doubt where you sort of went, oh, like, shit, I mean, these guys probably know what they're talking about. Maybe I need to reconsider?
I'm pretty stubborn. So yes and no. I kind of was like seeing a few things that these other guys had done as well, and kind of going, well, maybe they're like a bit too unsure of themselves, and like as in maybe they were thinking that, because like really my opinion has always been like, if you've got a good product and you're keen, you can kind of swing it whichever way you want it, like, and you can't really fail in that way, because if you're happy with what you're doing and you're keen on it in the first place, like failure doesn't really exist, I guess, because you just kind of like, I mean, you can go into the hole and money talks when that kind of happens, but if it's like, I was just so keen that like that, and when they were saying this kind of stuff to me, I was like, well, they're not the sort of people that I want to even push it with, you know. If they're being like that, then they're not
my audience.
That's not my audience. They're not the vision that they don't have the vision that I do, kind of thing. So
and it's also good because that way you're not relying on the area. You know, as far as that foot traffic has been that sort of that indicator you mentioned before, you said like you're relying on the product that you're creating and the experience that you're creating, and that's what sells. Yeah. Instead of like going the other way and going, well, I'm going to do the bare minimum because I'm going to rely on the traffic that walks past it, and I'll suck them in that way, and then that traffic dries up, and then you've got nothing to show. You're controlling what you can control.
Yeah. Honestly, like one of the biggest inspirations at the time was like just seeing how like the Yours and Ours guys had kind of started off. And I was like pretty regular. I lived in Wollongong when they just kind of got the cafe side of things started, because they used to run that little tiny, what's now Rad Bar, but they used to run it as like Yours and Ours Cafe. And at this time, like I was there all the time, nearly every week doing the trivia and having a drink or whatever. And just seeing how they were so like just some of the boys kind of starting it off kind of thing as well. And like they're in Wollongong, so it's a different area, but like even just their kind of like gung-ho kind of just, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, try something else kind of vibe that they were doing. And like I just kind of like saw that kind of change happening in Wollongong as a whole, and it has. It's like become more of like a food hub now. They've got the night markets and that kind of stuff, and people are actually involved and want to get out and do stuff in their cultures. I was like, I'll capitalize on that. I guess just in general, cafes are becoming more popular, and like it just felt like the right time and kind of felt like the right place. And that was a big influencer, I think, at the time as well. I guess I wasn't really like conscious of it all, but I was like noticing it all kind of happening, and that's what kind of made me go, yep, that's going to work. Like, I'll do that. There'll be people clean. There's heaps of people in the area. It's also one of those strange little towns where it used to be just all old people in their like fibro houses, and it's all turning into duplexes now. So like all these families of those older people are buying up their parents' houses and making 2 properties on it, selling it, and that 2 properties means more people, and so like the whole area is getting big, and like Corrimal's getting picked up now as well and developed, and they're putting apartments in. So I just could see there was lots of people in the area, and people wanted to eat, drink, and be merry. So that was why we kind of wanted to do that.
It's cool. I mean, I guess one of the things that you would have had, actually, let me rephrase that. What were some of the challenges that you had leading up to the opening of your business? You mentioned like you had a soft launch to begin with. I think we might have spoken about that before we were recording, but what were some of the things that you had to go through, keeping in mind that you've had no experience in opening a cafe? Was there anything in particular that was a challenge sort of professionally in a business sort of sense that you had to sort of deal with?
Yeah, so with in terms of getting funds together, I had to get a loan, and without sort of going through details, I had to kind of like work out my own sort of where I'd been, and I was pretty clueless, I guess. As I said before, it's kind of like a student, I guess, up until like my mid-20s, and didn't really know how to like manage my funds. I hadn't really done any of that kind of stuff, so I was just kind of like, all right, what's my work history? How's that going to help me sort of get a loan in it? And it meant that I couldn't really at the time, so I had to. I felt kind of sheepish, but I had to, and my mum was kind of like the one that kind of could help me out at the time. And I felt kind of sheepish because like I had to kind of convince her that this is something that I wanted to do. And she's like, well, why do you want to do it? Like, and basically I just said what I just said to you. I was just really keen, and she kind of helped me there. She was like, all right, well, we'll get a loan in my name, and then we'll get that started. And I had to kind of convince her, I guess, at the time. And I've still like it was just like that was pretty challenging to sort of work out what we're going to do, because I didn't know how much it was going to cost. I didn't really have any ideas. I was kind of like trying to make little kind of business plans at the time. Every time I do it, I just get annoyed and just delete it all, and just and so I was just kind of like, look, I'm just going to just go with whatever I've got. I've got some like furniture stuff that I've got laying around. I've got a mate who's got a bunch of old furniture, and
getting resourceful.
Yeah, kind of just like picking up whatever I could, and yeah, that's that. The biggest challenge at the start was just finding somebody that would do it with me, I guess, and that was like the hardest part. And when I found Tom, as soon as we started get going, we were here for like a year, getting everything on the move, and sort of doing renos and teaching ourselves, and in terms of the actual business side of things. At the time, we were approaching council and seeing if we could do it all, and like trying to work out the best way to do that, and even like even the people that were sort of telling me like, oh, you're gonna have to get approval, and this is gonna take months and months, and you might have to go to a certifier instead of the council, and a certifier at the time seemed like the best way to go. Turned out it wasn't. That was a big hiccup, I guess. We had to go through. So when we start like this kind of thing, it was when you're getting approval for the sort of the CDC, which is like the Compliant Development Certificate from the council. That was like, I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't even know that you needed to get one. And like, I knew that this used to be a bakery, so it had already been kind of approved for food and drink, but I didn't really know like what that meant for a cafe/art space kind of thing. We didn't have to change much there, but we did have to kind of apply to have it redone for a new one, so we had to kind of get all that together, and that meant a lot of red tape kind of online and talking to different people, and
pretty overwhelming, like so much stuff that you had, like, and I think we said before we were recording, like if you knew all the steps that you had to take when you first had the light bulb idea, you may not have actually gone ahead with it.
I really do think that was it. I think you're right. I think I would have probably gone, that's too hard.
But I guess it's just a case of just chipping away at things. Each hurdle that comes along, you just deal with it and then just move on to the next thing.
I feel like that's pretty much the biggest lesson I've learned from this whole thing, even just in life, man. Like it's been like the life-work balance has been pretty tricky, but like as you said, taking each hurdle as it comes and just doing it when you can, and like doing what you need to do, and just otherwise people get up here and tell you that you're going to get fined, so you just do it. And no, man, another one that like, and a big piece of I mentioned the Yours and Ours guys. I had a meeting with Adam from Yours and Ours as I was starting it up, because as you said, I was getting a bit resourceful. I was thinking I probably should talk to people and have a chat. I went and had coffee with him in Thirroul and just had a chat and sort of sort of asked him a few questions. And one of the biggest pieces of advice he gave me at the time was like, look, all of this red tape stuff and all of this kind of thing that you need to like do comes along, and people kind of breathe down your neck, and you get letters and they're in red, and it's like, it's kind of scary, but none of it's personal. And like all that stuff, there's just some dude in the council chambers just trying to tick a box. Like, it's like, and if you let that kind of stuff get to you and think, oh crap, I'm not doing this right, and I'm the one that's like, this is the reason why this is happening, and I'm responsible, I'm not doing this right, then you kind of start to go, well, why am I doing it? And that I just keep thinking about that. Whenever that kind of stuff comes along, it's just like, it just needs to get done. Nobody's gonna get annoyed at me. They're just gonna give me a fine. So,
that's it. No one's deliberately trying to shut you down.
No, that's right. The council's not out to do that kind of stuff.
That's it. That's it. So being up and running for about a year now, or a year and a half coming to, what are the challenges that you got at the moment? I mean, I look around and you were talking about like business is great, it's doing really well, but what's something that you, like a hurdle or anything that you sort of, or even a day-to-day challenge that you got to deal with? Yeah,
so one of the biggest day-to-day challenges is the weather. Like honestly, the weather is the biggest thing. Today we're sitting in like a 30-degree day. It's supposed to get up to it, and it's already getting pretty stinking hot. So like by about lunchtime, it stops. The coffee stops definitely. So like that's a hurdle. The one thing that is good though is that whenever weather's bad through the week, means that people are so much keener to get out on the weekend. So those weeks where we have bad weather, either it be windy or raining or too hot, on the weekend, even if it's a stinker, like it'll just pack out. Like we have music here on a Saturday and Sunday as well. We get people playing in the courtyard out here, and then, but yeah, the sort of day-to-day things is just the weather mainly, and like we've sort of gotten to a rhythm now about how much staff we need for certain days and like kind of what ordering we need to do. So that's not too much of a problem anymore. It was at the start. It was pretty tricky to
trial and error to try and work out what days are
that's right, not throwing out things that we're not over ordering, and we're just been really, really lucky that like the communities has had such a good response that like the financial side of things has been kind of speaking for itself. And Tom and I just kind of, because we're not doing anything else in here, we don't need to sort of worry about fixing ourselves up too much. We just kind of just let the business do it, and then every now and again we check in on the numbers and kind of go, whoa, that's really, really hectic, and that's good. And then, but yeah, that's about the day-to-day stuff. The weekends are flat out, and I would say that like it's to the point of like we want more staff, but the kitchen's not that big, so we have 8 people here on Saturday and Sunday. Wow. So it's getting out of control with that sort of size of staff.
It's a good problem to have.
Oh, yeah. That is definitely a good problem to have. Yeah.
So having some sort of hospitality business where you're providing, a place to eat and drink, and obviously you've got an element of entertainment there as well, because that's feeding the initial passion and the idea of having a space for artists. But I mean, are you using any sort of online marketing or anything like that? Have you just been really lucky with the area, or have you sort of found that having a bit of online presence has also helped?
So pretty much the main research tool that we use is looking at other people's Instagrams, other cafes and other restaurants and stuff, and like in terms of like our own promotional stuff, it comes from the fact that we do nothing but so a bit, I'm not really like embarrassed to say it, but like it comes from the fact that the dishes we serve here are presented in a way that people are going to want to take a photo of it. So so we let the crowd do the talking, and like a lot of the time when our dishes go out, straight away you'll see them putting down the table, and all the girls will grab out their iPhones and start taking photos, and it's and that means that we don't have to worry about that stuff, and it also means that like you see like a crazy looking dish that we have on our special menu, and it might pop up in your news feed or something like that, and everyone goes, oh, what's that? And they literally, you look at we get tagged in it and say like, oh, we're at Yarnsy's Cafe having this, and then you look at the comments and everyone's like, where is this? I've got to try this, oh my gosh. Like, and it's like, that's all we do. And then the only other thing that we do is when our specials do come out, we just put up a photo saying like we've got like this artist playing on Saturday, we've got some new artwork up in the gallery, this is our new special, and that's literally all we do. We've had a few interviews here and there with the local media, and we signed up at the start with Good Food Guide, but they ended up being a bit like, straight away I was kind of like, this is, you talk about before about like hurdles at the start. I kind of was like, I should probably go to like talk to these business people, and I went to the council and had like business meetings and like tried to do some online stuff where it was like researching about how to like, and for me for our business model it was hard to it was hard to accept that like all of that kind of business research is business sort of tools that you can sort of tap into. It was hard for me to accept that that works for every single business, and I feel like personalizing it was a better idea. And like I feel like what I've headed towards is a much more personal thing. And yeah, when that comes to online stuff, it's like I let the food speak for itself. I let the food and the presentation of it speak for itself. And when people come here, they see the vibe of it. And it's we don't do a great deal of online, but what we do, we've really like tried to make, and it comes again back to I reckon it comes back to how I deal with my band, like with the band and how we promote the band. We only put pictures up now, like we don't do anything else except for that, and that's the same with the cafe. We only put pictures up.
It's a visual thing, but I mean, it's not about quantity, it's quality.
100%.
And so when you do put something up, it is of a standard that you expect. And the other thing is like all the additional ideas that other cafes might do, or the expectations of what a cafe should or shouldn't be doing. I mean, you can add that on at any stage.
That's right.
If and when it's appropriate.
Yeah, that's right. And if we need it, then we would.
Yeah, that's right. And I think just having that genuine approach where you just do things that mean the most to you. Yeah. And I think people identify with that, and they're attracted to that because you're not just going through the motions and ticking boxes. You're doing things because you're passionate about it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for sure.
So a year and a half in, what's the next sort of 6 to 12 months look like? I mean, you've explained a little bit with. And you'll have to give me some photos as well, but you sort of got these little partnerships, not formal, but these little partnerships there's a brew house next door, there's a tyre place on the other side, there's this really cool courtyard and this communal sort of vibe. But you sort of gradually expanded this place over the last year or so.
That's right, yeah.
Is there any other sort of plans in the near future, or is it more of a case of just keep rolling with what we've got?
Well, you pretty much nailed it on the head when you said that, like, it's like a communal thing, and that wasn't even something that we expected when it sort of started happening. These other businesses just started opening up around us, and I guess they could see that it was a kind of attractive area to sort of start doing stuff in, so they all kind of jumped in as well, and they were just really complimentary. They just ended up, people can go get Thai and have a coffee afterwards, or have your meal. And we've all got BYO in our cafe for the brew house, so you can take your beers in, and we can take food into the brew house, and it's all just really like communal, and it's really all worked really well. And I'm just glad that the other business owners as well have seen that it would only work if they were working with us and not against us, sort of thing. And so like it has, and it's really, really taken off. In terms of what we're going to do next, for a while there I was like thinking, like, what do we do next? Like what do we expand? People had suggested that we go and start a new cafe, like just go and do another one somewhere else because it had been so successful. And I was like, no way am I going to do that. If I did that, I'd have to half my passion throughout the two, and I'd be stressed myself too thin. I don't trust anybody enough at the moment to run the other one by itself. So I was like, no, I'm still enjoying myself here. It's still challenging, still busy all the time. So I'll just want to keep this going. And then for a while I was like stressing a bit about like, what are we going to do? Is it going to die off? Surely it's going to die off some point. Like surely it's going to go down, and it will. Like there's going to be a time when another cafe opens up, or the area gets become less financially stable, or whatever. There's going to be things that happen, but as it's always been, it's just going to be, I have to take it as it comes and work out what happens when it happens, kind of thing. I can plan for the future, but every time I've done that in the past, it's kind of set myself up to be a bit too stressed out about doing that kind of thing. So I've never really like bothered, but for now I'm getting more and more satisfaction out of for the fact that it has gone so good. We've been able to take more days off. So Tom and I take 2 days a week off each. Like we kind of alternate Friday, Saturday, and then I have Sunday, Monday off, and we sort of do that, and then that has meant that I've got like a little bit of spare time to focus on who's the next artist I'm going to get into the gallery. Like we always get local people, so I'm always looking around the local area, and I really like getting exposed to all that new art. I get new musicians in, always looking for new musicians. We're booked in out to sort of after May now at the moment, and with musicians on the weekends. So I really like taking that kind of role on as well, and building up a bit of a repertoire of people that I can sort of call upon to do some music. And yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing. We were just rolling with it, and it's been still on the up. We broke our record a couple of weekends back, and yeah, it's I guess we're doing something right, so I don't want to change it. Don't fix something that's not broken, kind of thing. So that's where we're at the moment.
Just keep doing the best at what you've created.
That's it, man. That's it.
That's cool. Well, I'll put links everywhere. I'll put a bunch of photos up, and
awesome,
if anyone's in the area, should stop by. I'm actually really impressed, man. Like
thank you.
I saw a couple of photos online, but I got here and went, wow, this is a really cool space. It's not your stereotypical cafe that you just rock up, as I said before. You walk in, it's a tiny little spot where you're sort of forced to sit down immediately, or it's 2 tables out the front, and that's it. It's a really sort of open, spacey vibe, and it's casual, and it's awesome. So well done.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Cheers.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Cheers. Thanks, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed that chat with Jariss from Yarnsy's Cafe. If you want to go and scope out the cafe yourself, you can go to number 2/81 Meadow Street in Tarrawanna, which is a northern suburb of Wollongong, and you can go and check all that out. Now, you can also find Yarnsy's Cafe on Facebook by searching Yarnsy's Cafe. That's YARNSYS Cafe, and the same on Instagram as well. But as always, the links, everything we discussed in this chat will be over in the show notes over at selfstarter.com.au, including my key takeaways. Now, I got 4 key takeaways from this chat with Jariss. Now, there was heaps of extra stuff there. So as always, in true self-starter fashion, I'd love to hear from you if you got something different out of this particular chat with Jariss, or anything else that I've missed in a previous episode. I'd love to be able to highlight it in one way or the other in an upcoming episode or a blog post or something like that to give some added value for you guys as well. But here are my 4 key takeaways from this chat with Jariss from Yarnsy's Cafe. Number 1, find the right people. Now, Jariss had no experience running a cafe, let alone a business, and he didn't pretend otherwise. Jariss sought out friends who had experience to not only get insight and advice, but ultimately build a partnership with his friend Tom, who had many years of working and managing in cafes. Together, and with advice from other friends running successful businesses in the area, they were able to follow through on an idea and make it reality. Number 2, find confidence in what you are creating. At times, Jariss certainly felt the heat of the constant challenges of creating and launching a business. But what kept him going through those times was focusing on what he had control over rather than those external factors that he often did not have control over. Jariss is a firm believer of enthusiasm combined with a great product or service can lead to success, which helped motivate him through those tougher times. Number 3, it's never personal. Jariss learned a valuable lesson from a fellow friend and business owner that the external challenges are never personal. Bills, licenses, permits, fines, notices, and the mountains of paperwork are merely coming from others who are just trying to do their job. Jariss made sure that he didn't get swept up in the emotional aspect of being challenged by various providers and the local council, and took the approach of just getting it done. Number 4, excite your customers. In a world of Instagram and instantaneous social media updates, Jariss ensures that their food is served in a way that people will want to take a photo of it. By encouraging and embracing the social media world, especially when it comes to foodies, Jariss is letting the food and his happy customers do the talking by them wanting to take the photos, posting them online, and hopefully tagging the cafe. And that's it, folks. Those were my 4 key takeaways from this episode with Jariss from Yarnsy's Cafe. As always, if there was something that I missed or something different that you got out of this episode, I would absolutely love to hear from you. You can use the contact page over at selfstarter.com.au, or you can message me through Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook by searching at Andy Dowling as well. That's it, folks. Another episode in the bag. Really appreciate the support. Thank you for the feedback. It's been absolutely motivating and inspiring to get a lot of great feedback from you guys, and I'm really looking forward to bringing you more and more episodes from different business owners, and I'm starting to branch out into other parts of the country, so stay tuned. Until the next episode, take care, folks. Ta-ta. Larry.